2013 marks the 200th anniversary of Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice. This year, many people are celebrating Austen, but why? What about this writer causes her to continue to be celebrated all over the world? The positive criticism of Austen varies from century to century. Nicola Trott, author of the article Critical Responses 1830 to 1970, describes the varied criticism by stating that, by those in the earlier period, she is admired for her comedy, the comedy, that is, of social manners, and by later critics because of the ethos or criticism she offers. One instance of Austen's criticism can be found in her juvenile work. In 1791, Austen wrote The History of England by a partial, prejudiced, and ignorant historian. It served as a satire of standard school history books, specifically of Oliver Goldsmith's History of England from the earliest times to the death of George II. Within Austen's work, she openly reveals her dislike for Queen Elizabeth and her love for Queen Mary. She also shows her criticism towards Queen Elizabeth's male advisors, putting partial blame for her mischief onto them. Paula Brine, author of The Real Jane Austen, explains how even the illustrations show Austen's criticism. She explains how the portrait of Queen Elizabeth makes her appear less attractive than Queen Mary. Queen Mary's portrait, on the other hand, appears to be, according to Brine, full of face, pink-cheeked, and beautiful with dark curly hair. Austen also criticizes social classes within Pride and Prejudice. Within England in the 18th century, people of superior rank were greatly outnumbered by the lower classes, but change among the classes was occurring. Roy Porter, author of English Society in the 18th Century, described this change by stating that England was a society in which the fences dividing social ranks were in theory and in practice jumpable. However, these changes were not particularly welcomed. Certain definitions began to form in regard to class, and soon a disgust towards trade among the gentry formed. The negative feelings of being associated with trade can be seen in Austen's character Sir William Lucas. Austen explains how Sir Lucas's knighthood had given him a disgust to his business, which was trade, and to his residence in a small market town. While Austen does manage to clearly explain the disgust of trade among the superior classes, she also reveals that the Bingleys' wealth originated from trade. Austen states that they were of a respectable family in the north of England, a circumstance more deeply impressed on their memories than that their brother's fortune and their own had been acquired by trade. The Bingley sisters' disapproval of lower social status reveals that they are in fact hypocrites, since they too once had to work for their money. Austen also criticizes manners. Within Austen's lifetime, it was not uncommon for social rules to dictate how individuals were to behave. Often, women were taught the proper manners through conduct books, such as Fordyce's Sermons. A major rule at this time was women were always to be introduced to men, and people of lower classes were always introduced to their superiors. Within Pride and Prejudice, there are instances when Austen appears to respect social manners, but there are also instances where she has her characters disobey certain social norms. One instance where Austen's characters fail to abide by social rules is when Mr. Collins addresses himself to Mr. Darcy. Austen explains that Elizabeth told Mr. Collins that it was not in the least necessary there should be any notice on either side, and that if it were, it must belong to Mr. Darcy, the superior in consequence, to begin the acquaintance. Paula Brine, author of the article Manners, describes Austen's interpretations of social rules as manners by stating that the key to the paradox is the distinction between theory and practice. Jane Austen valued good manners in action, but scorned those who did not practice what they preached. There is also satire involved with the Gardiners and Lady Catherine. Austen shows that the aristocracy was not always better mannered than the commercial class. Lady Catherine makes it obvious that Elizabeth's relationship to the Gardiners would pollute Pemberley, but really it would be polluted by Lady Catherine's ill manners and snobbery. Austen successfully exposes the manners of the upper class while stressing the importance of being polite when necessary. Jane Austen was a woman writer who not only preserved the life of the 18th century within her writing, but she also offered incredible criticism, proving that she was more actively engaged in her society. It is for this reason and more that Austen continues to be honored today.